Thank you, Steve. With the invention of computers and the internet, information is at our fingertips. This can be a good thing. However, sometimes it's better to let those who have studied the subject help you rather than do it yourself. In the Level 4 project question and answer session for Pathways, Vicki will be discussing some computer programs and why it might be better to hire a professional. Her speech will be followed by a question and answer session. Please welcome Vicki Chatterton for speech. Let me help you with that.
He's a computer.
Fellow Toastmasters and guests, how many of you by show of hands have ever booked a flight, a hotel, or something other travel related on the computer? All right. We've all done that. It used to be a profession where people would be travel agents, and if you wanted to get a flight, the best way is to go to a travel agent because they had the know-how. We couldn't go to the computer and just look up times, but they had the inside information. So we used to go for that. I can remember being a teenager and wanting to fly up here for Apple Blossom, not telling my mom, and went to a travel agent and booked a flight. I was really surprised that they allowed me to do that, but I was able to do that. But that was because we didn't have computers. Now, with computers, there's so much information that is allowed to us. And I love to look at flights and look at things. One of my favorite destinations is Disneyland, and I love to explore the different options that I have. And that's great. But I've also learned that if I still go to a travel agent now, sometimes they have great deals or special perks that I don't know about. Sometimes at AAA, they will have lanyards and those trading pins that everybody likes to trade at Disneyland, and they have special ones if you book through them. And I didn't know that until one time I decided to try that and book through them. Now, I know that if I were to travel internationally, I would go to a travel agent because there's so many factors that I don't know that I would want to not put that into my hands. I would want an expert to do that. Now, the computer is a great thing, and there's many programs. And as a tax preparer, I know of several programs that people like to do it themselves. One being QuickBooks. So many people use QuickBooks because it has made it easy and accessible for people to do their own books. However, there's one little thing that they need to know, and that's how to set up QuickBooks before they even enter anything in there. And a lot of people have not studied to learn where certain accounts go and how they interact with one another. And if you're not sure how they're supposed to interact, when you look at your statements, you might think they're great. I had one person come in tax season, plunk down his QuickBooks information for me, all excited, and said, "Okay, do my taxes." And I looked at them a little perplexed because it is said he lost $125,000 in his business because it was in parentheses, which means that it was a loss. Somehow, when he set up his QuickBooks account, something in the back end wasn't registering, and I had to explain to him that it was showing that he had a loss, and was this true? And he was telling me, no, it's not true, I made money. And it was just one of those frustrating subjects as to what works and what doesn't work. You have to know what it's supposed to look like, kind of, sort of, when you look at your QuickBooks account. Depreciation is another one of those fun things that people kind of understand if they're a business owner, but not quite. It's just one of those things that all of a sudden at the end of the year, if they have a CPA, the CPA just figures it out, puts it in the QuickBooks account for them, and sends it off to them. And so it's quite interesting to see when people all of a sudden are doing it themselves Because since they have QuickBooks, and QuickBooks is tied to TurboTax, which is an online program, people are like, I can do everything myself and save so much money. Yes, until you get that letter from the IRS saying that you owe them thousands of dollars. Did it really save them money? It's interesting. When I was working at a big tax company, it allowed me to interview the client at the desk. And it was kind of interesting because you would have that conversation. And I would ask them something and their eyes would get big and they'd say, yes, I did pull out retirement. Let me get that form for you. And so I would know where it would go on the tax return. However, I had a client come in one time who had already done their taxes and couldn't understand why the IRS wanted everything that they had already given them plus another $1,500. Why, they asked. So they gave me their information and I looked through it. And yes, their Bank of America statement said that they had pulled out $15,000. Okay. But what they didn't understand was that they pulled it out of a retirement account. And they were not over the age of 65. And the IRS kind of frowns upon people taking money out of their retirement before they are supposed to. And I looked, and they had reported that $15,000, but as of bank interest. Because when they were doing TurboTax, they saw bank, and they figured bank interest would cover that and put it there. And so therefore, the IRS was penalizing them because they actually owed money and had a penalty for taking money out. The tax laws change every year. Sometimes just minuscule. Sometimes it's just a few numbers as far as standard deduction amount, exemptions, stuff like that. But if you're not studying it all the time, you're not up to date on it. And TurboTax is a great program, but sometimes it's very confusing if you're not understanding what the questions are. I like that people can use TurboTax, and if you feel confident enough to use TurboTax, perhaps do it 1 year and see. And then if there's a tax company that's one of those big ones that's offering that free second look, take them up on it, because they might be able to find something for you and help you before the IRS finds that. QuickBooks and TurboTax are a great program, and I'm able to answer questions if you want to use those programs. So at this point, I'm opening up the floor, and if you have questions about taxes or how to use computer programs, please let me know. Taxes are just riveting.
So now I'm timing.
Vicki, how long for the Q&A?
8 to 10.
Okay, 8 to 10 more.
So now I'm timing 8
Now you're
minutes.
telling me 8 to
Yeah,
10
right.
again.
Okay.
Or until there are no questions.
All right.
And remember what it is.
Yes.
each was.
Is QuickBooks double entry?
QuickBooks can be double entry if you program it the correct way. So like I said, when you set it up, if you know where one transaction is supposed to debit and one transaction is supposed to credit, it should do that on the back end. And it should.
It should balance, huh?
It should balance. When you look at that balance sheet, if numbers are off, something's off. So, yes.
Is QuickBooks the only program to use, or have you thought of using any other programs like Zero?
There's Peachtree, there's all sorts of different programs to use. The most common one for the public seems to be QuickBooks because that is the one that's marketed most easily. And the nice thing about QuickBooks is they have now programs that you can take a snapshot of certain things and it's supposed to populate. And that's kind of, Intuit is a great company. They've got great technology as long as it's put in correctly. Now, one thing is they have this for TurboTax. You take a snapshot of your W-2 and it populates everything. However, sometimes W-2's box 12 is filled out and it doesn't know exactly where to populate that one. Or a lot of times we have college students who make enough money to where they have to file taxes, but their parents still get to claim them. And there's one question on the tax program that says, are you being claimed as a dependent? And a lot of children don't click that box. And I get a lot of parents that say, why is our tax return being rejected? And that is because of that. Yes?
I am a retiree over 65, and I built a house this year, so we did pull out of some of our retirement. What percentage would you recommend that a person in my situation should take out for taxes?
There's many factors into what you might have to take out. And so my suggestion is you talk to your tax professional about that. If you do it yourself, look at last year's taxes, see where they are at, and look at the new tax laws. But if you have any more questions, I'd be happy to actually look over concrete numbers with you. And also, I just wanted to mention about populating things. There is a wonderful program, though, that with all of your smartphones, if you use it for tracking mileage, those programs are great because our phones know exactly where we are and can track our mileage like to the T. So if you find one of those programs and want to use that for business and you get to deduct your mileage, that is one program that is well worth downloading on your phone. Yes?
If you have your taxes done by a CPA or another professional and then you do get one of those letters from the IRS, that person usually fights the battle for you.
Yes.
Do the online, do like TurboTax or any of those, is there anything similar? Like if the IRS asks you a question, are they going to help explain what their program did? This is what I'm getting at.
Yes. So will TurboTax help you if you get a letter from the IRS? Probably not. They might explain to you why it's put in a certain thing, but generally their thing is that you filed it yourself, you were self-prepared, and so therefore you are the one who did it. I'm surprised that TurboTax does not have a guarantee that you can buy that says, yes, we've got it correct, but maybe they've outweighed their errors and omissions policies to find out if that was cost effective for them or not. Any other questions?
I'll give you one.
Yes.
Okay, I'm using Zero.
Uh-huh.
Can I import it into QuickBooks?
I would have to look into that. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Most programs will interchange with one another nowadays. It just kind of depends on what program. Now, is Zero a math-based or is it all
Cloud-based.
cloud-based? Okay.
It's competing directly against QuickBooks
Okay.
and are gaining tremendous market share.
I'll have to look into Zero to find out what it looks like if it's more effective. Because with QuickBooks, another thing that scares me is you can go in and change an entry at the whim of, oh, I got this wrong. And so therefore, anybody can go in and, should I say doctor their documents? But yeah, there's no backtrack that says that you can't change QuickBooks whenever you feel like changing it. It's kind of, QuickBooks is kind of scary, but I will look into Zero. Thank you very much for that. Mr. Toastmaster.